COOGS House. Break out the coffee, the 5-hour energy, the Dino Ranch, whatever you need, because the Houston Cougars have a late one tonight, and it's going to be a great game.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. But you make it first listen each and every day. If you enjoy the conversation, but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. So when I heard Dino Ranch, I thought of Dino Nuggets. I was going to ask what the best shape of chicken nuggets is. But I actually want to ask, did you know what Dino Ranch was before Coach Kelvin Sampson mentioned it as the way he thinks his grandkids are going to stay up in his press conference on Thursday? Now, I want to talk a lot about this game. I want to make some predictions about Houston and Purdue meeting up in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis. I want to talk some about the matchups as well. But I just keep watching this team, the Purdue Boilermakers, that is, getting ready for this, and just have a lot of thoughts on them. First and foremost, I do want to say that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at 5-Hour Energy. So staying up late for the game on a Friday night is made easier with your buddies over at 5-Hour. But I also think that as we look at this, I said throughout the week that I was got an expert coming on, and full disclosure, they had some stuff come up at the very last minute and then weren't feeling so well because of that. And so they are not here, but I'm here, and we texted back and forth, and they gave me their notes on the Boilermakers. I took some more as I watched. And obviously there's two big names to keep track of with this group. Braden Smith being the point guard, All-American kind of guy. We'll get to him in a second. And then the big man that I think people are putting a lot on the shoulders of is Trey Kaufman-Renn, right? So Trey Kaufman-Renn is the big guy. He's listed at 6'8", 6'9", listed at 225, listed at 230, listed at 240, different places you look. I'd say he's big and strong. Not like 7 foot big, but big and strong, right? Now, in big picture terms here, he's a 20-point per game guy. He's an 8.5 rebound guy. He's really, really good. I think what's impressive about him, though, is he feels like he's straight out of like maybe 1998 in a lot of ways as a power forward. He's got great footwork. He's got great face-up stuff. He gets isolated a lot inside of 10 feet and uses his body to like make the move before he catches the ball, which when you're coaching a post player, you tell him to do a lot, right? We'll talk about the matchups in the second segment, but I think that Houston's going to double him a lot, both because in principle, that's what Houston does to most offensively gifted post players, and also they kind of have to get the ball out of his hands. I also think, though, what you're going to see on the other end is Houston's going to look to, in their offense, attack him in screens, attack him in things that get him in potential foul trouble, ultimately with the goal being that you're forcibly, kind of limiting his minutes or limiting his aggression, right, and those kinds of things. He's really, really good on the pivot, really, really good on the drop step, does not have to bounce it to make guys miss, and that's all obviously pretty strong. As far as the point guard goes, Braden Smith gets in the ball a lot, and Braden Smith is your very traditional assist-first kind of guy that ends up scoring a lot because when he knows it, he knows when it's his turn. The biggest thing with him is Houston's got to find a way to keep him out of the lane, get him out of the lane. He likes getting the lane on the bounce and kind of make things happen from there. That's when he gets his drop-offs to First and TKR. That's when he gets his kickouts to Loyer. That's frankly when he hits floaters. He's really, really good in the lane and kind of in attack mode downhill. I think that Houston's biggest thing to do on that is making him change directions a couple times, kind of taking off some of that speed momentum and kind of, in essence, taking away that first option. He's so good at second and third, too. I don't mean to say that he's not a great point guard. He is. But he's, he is their entire motor and engine. And if you're constantly making him adjust, at some point, every engine breaks, right? Fletcher Loyer, in looking at my notes and looking at my buddy's notes, I don't want to throw their name out there because I want people to assume that talk about what's going on. But anyway, Fletcher Loyer, really quick release, moves really, really well without the ball, shoots the ball from three exceptionally well. Obviously, we talk about that throughout the week. Fletcher Loyer is not a guy that I'm necessarily concerned with, like them drawing up a lot of stuff for, unless he gets hot. Then they're going to do all kinds of movement stuff to get him the ball in space, moving off the back screens and flaring him out and pinning him down and hammer and all kinds of stuff like that, right? So I don't think unless he gets hot, Houston's got to worry about that. I will say that Houston can kind of keep him from getting hot, from cutting off those kind of opportunities. You got to cover him, but truthfully, it feels almost like when you're playing like when Houston played BYU or something like that. Like once you run him off the line, he's kind of limited in what else he can do. Right, so they want to attack him. And then they start Caleb First. Caleb First is 6'11". He's not a gigantic threat to score the ball. I have him in my notes. I think my buddy disagrees with me. I have him in my notes as like Victor Lakin from Cincinnati a couple years ago, right? Big, strong, sturdy. I think that's the only way to hurt you is if he was kind of attacking a lot like Lakin did. He's not an offensive threat. They don't go to him as a first option or through him a whole lot. And he's just a bad matchup in this game, I think, for Purdue. Now, if Purdue can keep him on the floor, that means they're doing things right. So I think that's the indication you see when you see him out there. But he kind of has to play a drop coverage. We've seen Houston guards murder drop coverage across the year. They've had success pulling up off the dribble, success getting in the paint for floaters, success getting into the post body for and ones. I mean, drop coverage has not worked against this Houston team, and I don't see that changing a whole lot unless there's an abnormally bad shooting night, knock on wood. And so I just don't know what Caleb First can do for them. I think they're probably more likely to play TKR, Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 5, and then move a guy off this bench, Cam Edey, and he's a 6'7" guy. He can play more of that like stretch 4 kind of spot. He plays about half the game, it looks like, in terms of a little more than half the game in terms of minutes per game, and he's involved in small lineup, play a small lineup a lot, it looks like, and there's some of the lineup data. And I think that the difference there is that he's there stretch 4 at 6'7", and I think they may tell themselves they can, kind of mask some of that because Houston doesn't have a lot of height. They have wingspan and strength and stuff like that, right? And I just think that's how they're going to have to go in this. Either way, that does change the matchup some, which we're going to talk about in a second. But on the whole, I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about any one matchup. I do think they've got two of the best players. Like if you're doing an all Sweet 16, first, second, 13, they got two guys that are definitely on that. Really, really talented Trey Kaufman-Renn, TKR, and Braden Smith. Braden Smith's an All-American, and again, he's tremendous point guard and distributor of the basketball. However, I just don't know that there's a whole lot going on that I'm like, oh man, what's Houston going to do with this? How can Houston find something to do with that? And that's not to say they couldn't have an abnormally crazy shooting night. They're playing, it's going to be a home type of game as far as crowd goes. I just think that ultimately A game versus A game, Houston's okay here. But they're going to try and exploit some matchups to kind of get Houston off of that A game. And I think that's where things really get tricky is like, okay, yeah, it's A game versus A game, Parker. That's fine, but it's not a video game. People don't play. People are going to try and make mistakes, right? And what's Purdue going to do for that? What's Purdue thinking on that? And I want to get to those matchups in a second, but first, before we get too far, I do want to remind you guys that today's show is brought to you by Nissan. We're all about stats here at Locked On, and because numbers don't lie, when it comes to all new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP kind of level. The ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds and quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine. It's a really, really big engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. Room for up to 8 people. Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories when exploring off-road trails or rolling up to arena. The Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights at the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Park Rangers Locked on Cougs here. Looking at matchups between those Houston Cougars, and the 4-seed Purdue Boilermakers as they play the Sweet 16 matchup and a chalky feeling matchup out in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is just over an hour from Purdue's campus, but that's the way the cookie crumbled in this one. And I want to start by talking about the point guard matchup here because I think it's the one like pro scouts will probably be watching the most. So Milos Uzan, 6'4", listed, long, strong, great point guard. Seen the highs of Milos Uzan against like Arizona in the conference championship game. We've seen the lows of Milos Uzan, like when he fouled a couple times earlier this season. He had a not great scoring night in the round of 32. We've seen a lot of growth at him over the course of the year, though, I would say, right? Milos has the best player on the other team as his matchup, I imagine, in Braden Smith. Braden's 6 foot, Milos 6'4", but Braden, like, crazy assist machine, sees the floor super well, and everything that Purdue's going to be doing is going to be going through getting him involved in actions or getting him involved in some sort of a two-way kind of thing or anything like that. Now, Braden has struggled, it looks like to me, in looking at box scores and thinking about matchups and then texting back and forth some with the guy who watches all 32 of theirs, or like it's been 32 of theirs this year, or whatever it is. Braden has struggled with size and length. He's, again, only a 6 foot tall guard. And I think that what you're going to see is Milos be aggressive in this matchup. I imagine you'll see, block shots or attempted block shots. I imagine you'll see a lot of aggression on steals. And then the moment that Braden Smith picks that ball up, I think you're going to see Milos Uzan up chest to chest, all up inside his jersey kind of stuff on him, right? And I think the only thing that could make that go wrong would be if, like, Milos got in foul trouble, knock on wood, foul trouble, something like that early, right? And I understand that, like, I'm not saying that Braden Smith won't have a statistically good game. I don't mean that. I mean, he's good. He will get his at some point. But I think as far as, like, making him not the limiting what he does, Milos can do pretty well at that given the size and discrepancy there. Plus, think about how much better Milos Uzan is as a defender now as opposed to he was when he played earlier this season. We saw him do it to Caleb Love. We saw him do in BYU. What we saw him do across the board. Now, as we look at other matchups, the interesting matchup to me in the backcourt is LJ Cryer versus Fletcher Loyer. LJ, they frankly both take very similar shots on a shot chart. I guess LJ might have a more diverse shot chart a little bit. But Loyer, I think, is the easiest cover on paper because he's constantly looking for the three ball. You just got to track him outside the three-point line and all of that, right? Cryer is giving up some size here. We got Cryer at about 6'2", Loyer about 6'5", and so you got to be pretty tight to him to make sure that you don't give up that difference. But I do think it helps for Houston that frankly Cryer is kind of covering himself. He also covers Emmanuel David, often at practice, and he's tracked shooters around the 3-point line before. He understands that movement as well as anyone on the team. And also, for what it's worth, I think that on the other end, you'll see the same kind of thing, but Cryer's better at putting the ball on the ground. And so that matchup is an interesting one. I do think Cryer is liable to win it significantly, but I could also see a world where it's a very close one because they both get hot from three or something like that. So it's one to keep an eye on. The one I think Houston definitively wins is the third starting backcourt guy. It's Emmanuel Sharp, most outstanding player of the Big 12 Conference Tournament against CJ Cox. They're both listed at 6'3" and about 200 pounds. When I watched Purdue play, I think Emmanuel's a lot stronger physically than CJ Cox. That may just be how they carry the weight. There may be a little bit of fibbing on the weight sheet. I don't know. Both shooters. I think the big difference here is that Sharp uses his body a lot better on both ends of the floor, both in terms of like being smart about using angles and things like that, and then also in terms of just being really, really physical, really, really aggressive. I think that he's going to win that matchup definitively, unless they do some mixing up with their matchup throughout the game. CJ Cox is also a younger guy. Sharp's kind of a veteran. I guess a senior, but he is a veteran. And so you're seeing a lot of moments for Houston to kind of rely on that kind of stuff. I think the matchup that like your national audience is going to be intrigued by is going to be Juwan Roberts and Trey Kaufman-Renn at the power forward spot. Again, and this will be the starting power forward matchup. I don't know it'll be the power forward matchup the whole game. Like I said, I think in their opening segment, I think that Purdue will at some point have to go small. And ultimately, if they have to go small, then you might see J1 cover someone different. Just because, Houston does play with two bigs on the floor sometimes and stuff like that. Listen, this is from a skill to skill perspective, probably the best one-on-one matchup in the Sweet 16 as far as like good versus good, size versus size, as far as all that goes, right? Trey Kaufman-Renn has a lot of moves. He's really, really good down around the post, down inside of 10 feet. I think J1 Roberts is going to take one or two of those away and kind of make him do one or two other things, right? But I think the other thing that you're going to see here is a lot of Houston using their monster double team inside of 10 feet. What that means is doubling a post player, and when they blitz it, that's when they jump the guy outside on the pick and roll outside 3-point line. So then they blitz a guard, monster posts. And I think that you're going to see them monstering the post player come from backside big help in terms of JoJo Tugler. We're going to get to in a second. But also you're going to see it come from JoJo Tugler because you're going to have the backside guards are able to drop down a little bit and help out with the post because the big man in their starting lineup for Purdue is not a huge offensive threat. And so you can have some backside help between jumpers like Terrance or Mylik, so maybe some strength like Manuel or whatever to come down backside and really help fight off the post and the monster to give you recovery time. They spit it out, right? This is going to come down to, as far as who wins the Roberts and Kaufman-Renn matchup, I think it's going to come down to how well TKR is as a playmaker. He was really, really good passing the ball against McNeese. I don't mean to say he wasn't, especially early in that game. But I do think that the doubling monster ball pressure is different than at least things I have seen. And then texting my buddy here, one thing he had seen TKR, quote, do well with. So I think that that's the kind of thing that Houston's going to be okay with. If they stick to that monster, the deal will be if they start spitting out hitting threes and you got to get out of it, what can J1 do in one-on-one situations? I think he'll win some matches, lose some matches. That's the beauty of playing a really talented basketball player. Is you can't win everyone, but just trying to win more of them, right? Another one I think Houston does win defensively, though, is the other big, and that may help some in this. JoJo Tugler versus Caleb First. JoJo Tugler is up for Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. He plays at the level and screens. He gets up and blitzes when he has to. He dives on the floor for the first loose ball. He touches all the loose ball, rebound kind of stuff. I think he's going to run Caleb First ragged. He's going to run him around the floor, right? I think, though, that you're going to see matchups from Purdue that find ways to get smaller lineups on the floor, maybe take First out some. So then it becomes, can JoJo cover TKR without fouling him, right? Because JoJo has been known to be over-aggressive, and that can lead to fouls. And Trey Kaufman-Renn has got some real craftiness to his game as far as getting guys on his backside, getting guys pinned, sealing things, right? And JoJo's had a tendency to foul in the situations, right? And so if they go small and JoJo has to guard TKR, you might see some struggles, right? You might see some fouls. So we'll see on that one. Jawan, I feel fairly confident in his savvy as far as playing with that goes. JoJo is just so aggressive. You don't want to coach that out of him because it makes him great. You just kind of live with it. It's a quarterback gunslinger kind of mentality, right? Now on the bench side of things, I do feel pretty confident that Houston gets more production out of their bench in terms of the big three, the first three that take off. Mylik Wilson could have a big game in this one. He'll be the fastest player on the floor for either team, but it'll be leaps and bounds faster than anything that Purdue's rolling out. I think you'll also see a pretty productive day at Javier Francis. He's got really great feet, and I think if he gets up matched up with First, the big man, starting big man for Indiana, for Purdue, then I think what you'll see out of that is a lot of spin moves and post play, and feeding on rolls into a more of a post move, catch it at 10 feet and make a post move kind of stuff. So I think that Houston's got an advantage in the bench. I didn't even mention Terrance Arceneaux. If they go small, Mylik and Terrance could each have big days respectively, because when you'll see Purdue go small, I imagine you see Houston take stretches of playing small as well. So I think that that's going to be how the matchups go. Again, some of those I favor Houston, some of those I think are toss-ups. And so this prediction part might not be the biggest of surprises, full disclosure. But I do think that I want to talk through how I see this game playing out. But first, mention it's a late night game. Daylight savings has snuck up on you, certainly snuck up on me. And if you're feeling that same loss of sleep or just trying to stay up for a late night Houston Cougar game, 5-hour energy has your back. Extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you just need a little bit of a boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late, watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep with your busy day, 5-hour energy gives you that quick and refreshing pick me up whenever you need it. I love the convenience, the size. It fits in the palm of your hand, right? Really, really easy to take with you wherever you're going. Head to 5hourenergy.com. Find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery store or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Parker Ainsworth Locked on Cougs here. Looking at Houston and Purdue's matchup in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis this weekend. We talked some about the Boilermakers, talked some about matchups. And now I want to talk through how I see this game going. Look, Houston's going to open the game trying to apply a lot of pressure both to ball handlers and to bigs wherever they are on the floor. I feel very confident in that, both because it's what Houston does, full stop, that's just what they do, but also because it's what Purdue has struggled with at different times this year. Purdue's not a perfect team. They've got 11 losses. But I do think that it's interesting to see when Houston's strength pairs with a Purdue weakness, what does Purdue try to do to counter that? Because you can't just out-scheme your way out of being less physical than Houston is or whatever, right? I think you're going to see a lot of really aggressive play on defense from Houston, and they're going to toe that line. They're going to push that line with whatever the refs allow them to do or not do. I want to know what Houston has for their hedges, right? What does it look like Houston's going to do if Braden Smith can break down the press and get in the lane and spit stuff out? What do they do? What do they get into more after that? Or not the press, but the pressure, I should say. What are they going to do if TKR is having a field day to spitting out the basketball? You've seen them have moments of that with guys that are known for that throughout the year, right? Whether it's Richie Saunders, a little bit different type of four, but a guy at the four position that obviously is a fairly impactful defensive player. You've also seen Houston do things like play Javon Small at West Virginia as a top tier caliber guard, Caleb Love, others. You've seen Houston play against dominant bigs like Norchad Omier and stuff like that, and kind of dominant bigs, and I guess a different way, Norchad. But either way, you've seen Houston have success with each of those, right? And so I think it'll be interesting to see how Houston handles that in this game with these matchups. I think you're going to see a big game out of Milos. I've been trying to dance around it, but Milos is bigger, stronger, faster than the guy covering him. He understands the gravity and the size going on with playing a guy that's an All-American for a guy in his position. And frankly, I think Milos and the success of Houston, Cryer puts up the big scores. Jalen Roberts been here forever. He's a name people know. Milos uses a name that's kind of gotten a lot more attention last month or so, but it's still not a name that I think people are necessarily associating with Houston and the Cougs. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Last but not least, I guess, and looking at what I see coming out of this one, I think what you're going to see is one of those bench guys at Houston have a truly phenomenal game. I'm still trying to pick between Mylik and Arceneaux myself as far as trying to figure out who it is. I do see a World Rush Javier Francis, but either way, I really feel like those guys are going to make a big impact in this game, have a big say in how this one goes. I talked to Bracket Breakdown about putting Mylik Wilson down as my X factor, and I would argue his defense, the plays he made down the stretch in the last 10 minutes of that game against Gonzaga in the round of 32 are what sealed the deal in that one. I don't think that's any accident, right? I feel like the same kind of thing could happen in this one. They're just not quite as deep as Houston is. And so ultimately, I think that that's going to be where the game gets decided. Right now, FanDuel has it as Houston by 8.5. KenPom has Houston winning 71-64. I kind of weirdly think it might be closer than all that. It's going to be like a two-possession game, so I guess that could be technically as far as 6 points. So maybe not too terribly far off from that KenPom connection. But I do feel like Houston's going to win this game. Again, I think it's interesting to see when what you're good at is what the other team is bad at. That's Houston's aggressive, the defense that kind of takes some risks and gambles and pokes at the ball and all that kind of stuff has flustered a bunch of different flustered Purdue a bunch of different times this season. And so if Houston's going to continue to have success with that and is allowed to play their style of game, I think that they'll be okay. I do think the crowd will be somewhat of a factor. It's kind of one of the reasons to have it down. It's close to like a 6-point game than an 8-9 point game. This is not a truly neutral floor. It's 70 miles from Purdue's campus. And truthfully, I'd be a lot more worried about this if I'd not just seen Houston and the Cougs go undefeated on the road this season. They haven't lost a neutral court game since the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They've done a pretty good job of holding firm in that instance, and so we'll see where things go from here. But I'm thinking Houston by, let's say, 6 points, maybe 5 points. Let's go 5.5 somewhere in there. That's kind of where I see this thing. So tell me in the comments down below what you think, or what you got going. We will be live post game, however late that may be. I said it. We'll be live post game, however late that may be. We may be recording in my laundry room. We'll see. The later that thing goes, obviously, the more likely we are to wake other people up. And there's one 21-month-old that does not need to be woken up at the end of this game. So we may be recording in the laundry and be as far away from that as possible. But either way, we'll be here live after the game. So check us out at Locked On Cougs. Hit subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, comment, hit the bell so you know when we're going live. If you can't catch it live, we'll obviously be on your audio platforms the next morning as well. Locked On Cougs is the primary Locked On podcast. Now that means your team every day. Go Cougs.